I hadn't intended on making a film. I've had an absolutely exhausting day, as you can probably see from the state of me, and I am really, really tired. But apart from the fact that I went for a meeting today with Baroness Cox, which was to discuss the success that Saturday's conference was, which it was an immense success, and fair play to everybody who turned up. We had a really good turnout. The room was nicely filled. People were very reasoned in everything they put forward. They put valid questions and valid concerns forward, and I applaud every single one of them that was there that you know gave their time, including a lady who is seriously ill, who travelled a very long way to be there, and upon arriving, I don't know if anybody can see this. I'll try and hold that up. I don't know if anybody can see that. I'll try and get it into the camera. Now that is one of the original pin badges worn by suffragette, working class suffragettes. They used to make them for each other. And just inside, I don't know whether you can really see, there's like a green pattern, green stone. So you've got the purple, the green, and the white, which is obviously the colours of M.A.R.I.A.S, which is the colours of the suffragettes. And the little green thing in there stood for votes for women. And it was, and I wear that with immense pride, because the one thing that is lacking in our country now is the women's voice. And it is high time we women showed that we are prepared to stand up and make a stand. So today was about discussing the success of that, and it was a success, and we are going to be holding another one very soon. As soon as I've got the place where it's going to be held, the time, the date, those who are interested in coming along, get your names down. Like I said, it will be the same as it was last time. Put your name down on the list. Your name's not on the list, you're not coming in. Sorry, but that's just the way it's got to be. Now, to the little boy washed up, and it is heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking image to see, and I, for one, wish no harm to any child. But the reason that that child ended up dead is because his father needed dentures. Nothing at all to do with fleeing a war-torn country, of being a refugee asylum seeker at all. You got people like John in Pakistan hiding in the back of a factory drinking water out of an air conditioning unit. That's a man who needs help. This man put his child and his other child, and you don't see any pictures of the other child and the wife, but his child, his two children and his wife into a boat and took that journey because he wanted dentures. And where is he now? He wants to go back to Syria. So he wants to go back to the very country he was fleeing as an asylum seeker. But hey, that'll just be me being cold and heartless. Now, I don't wish death on any child, but I certainly would not risk my child's life for a set of teeth. So that's one thing that I wanted to point out, and I'm sure many will jump on and tell me what a heartless, cold, callous person I am. Far from it. When that girl sat and spoke, and you realise these men are prowling around her every single day, walking around scot-free, having raped, trafficked, abused and tortured her. I'm far from callous. To then see, just bear with me, because I do think people need to see this. So we've got father of drowned boy, Aylan Kurdi, plans to return to Syria. That'll be that war-torn country. We've then got 9,000 ex-service personnel homeless after leaving the military, many of them suffering with PTSD. So we're going to take in all of these asylum seekers that we have no room for. None whatsoever. We can't have room. If we had room, we wouldn't have 9,000 ex-servicemen sleeping homeless on the streets, would we? Now, somebody tagged a post to me earlier, and I'm sorry if this bores people, but I really think you ought to all not only listen, but maybe we should all take a leaf out of this man's book. So, here goes. It's that my reading's not brilliant, so I apologise if I don't do it its justice. Dear David Cameron, whilst we, the British people, find your pledge to take in thousands of Syrian refugees astonishing, we, the British people, would like to ask you to simply answer a few questions about your policies that have been implemented against us, the British people, in the name of austerity. 1. Could you, David, explain why your government are contemplating asking our elderly to sign a do not resuscitate form when attending hospital, as they are deemed a strain upon the NHS? 2. Will these thousands of refugees you're freely shipping into our country have access to the already overstretched NHS that can no longer sustain the elderly British that have paid into the NHS all of their lives? 3. Where will we house these thousands of refugees you are allowing to freely enter our country? 4. Do you, David, have any plans to find homes for the 63,000 families, over 94,000 children already living in emergency accommodation in England? And will these people be allocated homes before the refugees arrive? 5. Will these refugees be in receipt of any benefits during their stay here in Britain? 6. Thousands of the most vulnerable British people have committed suicide due to having benefits stripped from them. Directly connected to your policies. You will be paying a personal visit to the families of these desperate people to explain why we, the British, cannot afford to pay benefits to desperate British people, but seem to have a bottomless pit when it comes to giving away British taxpayers' hard-earned money to non-British people. Will you, David, be paying a visit to food banks that 1 million British families are dependent upon to your sanctioning of benefits policy, to explain to the desperate British people forced to use these places, as your government says they do not qualify for benefits because they were 5 minutes late for an appointment? And explain why these refugees will be entitled to benefits despite never contributing to the system. Will you, David, be paying a visit to see the thousands of ex-military living on the streets of Britain due to the government cuts, and they're not being able to qualify for council housing, and explain to them why we seem to have no problem housing, feeding, keeping Syrian refugees? 9. If any of these refugees are of pensionable age, will they be entitled to any benefits even though they have never contributed into the system and never will? 10. Will you be at any time visiting the building sites to explain your decision to the bricklayers, plasterers, ground workers, paviours, concreters, steel erectors, roofers, labourers? How do you expect them to work until they are 70 before they can qualify for full pension, as the country simply cannot afford to pay them a pension before them, even though these hard-working men have paid in full all their lives? At what age will you be entitled to your pension, Mr. Cameron? How many Syrian refugees exactly will be arriving in Witney, your constituency? And have you asked the locals if it's okay? I look forward to your answers. Yours, William Charlton, Englishman. Now, I think that deserves not only a round of applause, but for every single person in this country that has the very same concerns, to take some time out of your neighbours, your Jeremy Kyle, or whatever it is you're doing, and take a tip out of that man's book and a leaf out of that man's book, and put a piece of paper and pen together and write Mr. Cameron a letter and demand a few answers to the policies that he has imposed with austerity measures on this country that we are all expected to suffer, and why our ex-forces are suffering on the streets, homeless with nowhere to go, and yet many of them suffering with PTSD. Or what about the fact that girls that have been raped and groomed get no real counselling and no recognition of the racially motivated crimes committed against them? Shall we ignore these, Mr. Cameron? Is that what we are supposed to do? We, the once great British public, should all hang our heads in shame for the cowardice that we are showing when it comes to moral fortitude and backbone, to standing up and saying enough is enough. So anybody with an ounce of common sense, pen to paper, money where mouth is, get that letter written. And let's see what answers our wonderful, amazing, spineless amoeba of a Prime Minister, David Cameron, has to say, or whether he does indeed ignore the great British public as he has ignored us since the day that he decided his pockets mattered far more than the country that he lives in and he is supposed to represent. For now, I'll bid everybody good night. I am absolutely exhausted and definitely in need of a good early night. You take care. Get those letters written. Mine will be going in the post first thing tomorrow. For now, bye.